Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valan Kalika, and I'll be your host for today. A few reminders before we kick off our session. If at any time you experience issues viewing the stream and you're using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. That is after the webinar ends. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast, and you can enable that by simply clicking on the CC button located at the lower right section of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask Question button. Please be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. If you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. Now, we often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. However, in the event if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve on these webinars, and to do so, you can go to aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. Also, I would like to invite you to join our public community by visiting our landing page at aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. And on our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews. And you can sign up for that program at aka.ms/securityprp. In there, you can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Lior, Arviv, and Fernanda Vela will be guiding us on how to use Azure Workbooks in Security Center. Lior and Fernanda are both the program managers with the Azure Security Center team. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you so much, Valon. Thanks for the introduction, and hello, everyone. My name is Lior Arviv, and with me today, Fernanda Vela. We are both program managers from the Azure Security Center Customer Experience Engineering team. And today we are going to speak on Azure Workbooks and the integration with Security Center. You can use throughout the session, the chat window, the Q&A, so you can ask questions, and we will be more than happy to assist and answer those throughout the sessions. Let's see what we are going to cover today. So this is the agenda. First, we are going to speak on the integration of Workbooks with Security Center. What was our motivation to do that? What is the current offering and the use cases? Then we are going to speak on the out-of-the-box workbooks, the reports that we delivered through the integration recently. We will see how easy it is to create your own reports on top of our data points. We will see some community samples and, of course, resources. So why to have Azure Workbooks or reports in the product? Customers often tell us that they need a reporting capability within the product, because if we are looking at today, Security Center provides valuable data points for customers. So basically, you can leverage the data points, for example, recommendation and security alerts, not just for the user interface. You can also query it from API. You can access the information from the log analytics workspace, and of course, from Azure Resource Graph But we discovered that not all customers are aware for these data points. And even if they are aware, they don't know often how to create personalized dashboards or reports on top of these data points. And we also need some reporting capabilities and provide out-of-the-box reports within the product so everyone can use it. So we explored many options that we have, and we've decided to integrate it with Azure Workbooks. We will go through Azure Workbooks, and you can understand a bit more on the product. But in general, it's a well-known service platform in Azure, which provides advanced analytics. Maybe you are familiar with Workbooks from Sentinel or Azure Active Directory, where you can access built-in reports, or you create your own reports based on these data points. So we have actually integrated and brought these capabilities into Security Center, so customers don't need to leave ASC context at all or choose another analytics platform to create those reports. We integrated with Azure Workbooks since it's available for free, not just in Security Center, for other products as well. It's very easy to use, and you will see how easy it is to leverage those data points and create your own reports based on our data. And you can also create interactive reports and not just static ones. And of course, this is a native Azure capability. So if you know how to interact with Azure portal, you know how to create, to use that service as well. What are Azure Workbooks? Basically, a workbook is a report. It is canvas that provides you data analysis or reporting. It provides rich and interactive visuals, so you can put on a canvas very many visuals and create a connection between, and you can actually compose a narrative. It's Azure portal experience, so it looks like any other Blaze in Azure, and it's also platform and a product. So if you use Workbooks with Security Center, you will know how to use it with other products like Sentinel, Azure Monitor, and so on. These are the key aspects of Azure Workbooks. So Azure Workbooks provide us to create interactive reports. You can choose to create reports based on a specific scope. It could be a subscription. You can pull information based on a resource group scope. So you have many scopes that you can actually define. You can create parameters for dynamic content. For example, if I create a report that pulls information from a subscription, then, for example, I can have another parameter that takes all the resource group from the first selection that I have, which is the subscription. You can create linking between workbooks and reports and have a cross-reference. For example, a workbook from Sentinel can point out to a workbook that stored in Security Center. It's portable. You can save, share those reports, pin to dashboard. You can deploy it at scale since it's based on ARM template. And of course, you can leverage many data points. Azure Workbooks support logs, metrics, health data. It can pull information from Azure Resource Graph, Azure Resource Manager, and also custom endpoints that you have. When we started to plan the integration with Azure Workbooks, we had these three main scenarios. So first of all, during Ignite, we released a preview of the integration in Security Center, and I am happy to announce that Azure Workbooks in Security Center are now globally available. It's in GA, so you can start using it. So our main scenario was the following. First of all, we wanted to provide users out-of-the-box reports. Based on customer feedback, we have decided to focus on three main ones, and we are about to ship more. First of all is secure score over time, vulnerability assessment, and missing system updates. So one scenario was to provide out-of-the-box reports, so customers don't need to invest on those reports. They just need to use it and start seeing insight. Secondly, we would like to offer also the ability to create custom reports from the product. So if you need to create such report, you don't need to leave the context to another product. You just need to be in Security Center and start creating those reports. And lastly, since we have many artifacts on our GitHub repository that created by other customers or by other Microsoft employees, we want to give you the opportunity to deploy it quickly with no need to understanding how to deploy it. Basically, with just a single click of a button, you can deploy those reports that are available on GitHub just in ASC. Let's focus first on the out-of-the-box reports that we provide with this integration. So Workbooks provide us a reporting, and we do have the data already, but we want to visualize it and also get insights. One of the top asks from our customer was to deliver secure score over time. As you all know, secure score is important for us to improve the security posture, but the data that you see now on Security Center is a live data, and many customers would like to track the progress over time. So using this report, you can configure continuous export capability to export historical data to a log analytic workspace, and we will see it in a minute. And using this report, you can get insights, for example, how you are progressing with the secure score. Customer also told us they saw an increase or decrease in the score, but they want to pinpoint for the resource that actually made the score to increase or decrease. So you can get insights on how you're progressing and see what are the resources or what are the resources changed over time, so you know how to improve your secure score and see, of course, the progress. Secondly, we created a system update report, which is based on the missing system update recommendation. So you can see, for example, the machines with the most outstanding updates, or a different views. For example, if you want to see a specific KB article and then see all the affected machines and export the information to a CSV, you can do it easily. And last one is the vulnerability assessment finding, which consolidate 4 different recommendations to see a unified dashboard for all vulnerabilities if it's a machine, container registries, and SQL resources. By having the integration in Security Center, we have a new main menu item called Workbooks. You are maybe familiar with it from other products, so now we have it on the product. And when you click on Workbooks, you get the Workbooks gallery, where you can use the predefined templates that are in purple. You can see my templates. Basically, these are organization templates. So organization can create a template and distribute it across subscription. So subscription owners can use an org level template, and also your own custom workbooks that you created, so you can see it on the gallery. Of course, we have the option to browse other galleries, for example, from Sentinel and Azure Active Directory. You can access the GitHub repo to deploy community workbooks and also to create one. Let's understand the difference between the workbook types. So the reports in purple that we will see in a minute, these are the public templates. These are the ones that publish and owned by Microsoft. So when we have a new template and we are releasing one, you will see it in purple under our gallery, and the same for the other galleries. It's functional. You just need to click on it and start using it and get the insight. It's ready to use, and of course, it's available for everyone. So no permission, special permissions needed to use them. The workbook in blue are the ones that you created. These are the custom that only you see when you create it. Of course, you can share it with other folks in the organization or deploy it using ARM at scale if needed. But these are the ones that you use and create for own use. And the last one are the My templates, are basically the organization template when the organization publish a specific workbook across subscription or for a specific team. And this is also, you can also deploy it using ARM. Workbooks are reporting capability, and we can use multiple data sources. But if we talk on just Security Center, there are 3 main data points that are relevant for us. First of all is Azure Resource Graph, when you can use queries to query real-time information that we have in Security Center, and especially the security resources table where all the Security Center data resides. Secondly is the log analytics workspace. You can use predefined tables that we store information as part of Security Center. And also, you can use continuous export data to stream Security Center to a workspace if you do want to see historical data. And that's the big difference between Azure Resource Graph. When you see live data, the data that are currently presented on the screen, which is different from the workspace when you can actually define your retention and keep historical data even for 1 or 2 years. And lastly, we can also use REST API since there are many API endpoints that Security Center provides or Security Graph. As I mentioned, there are 3 main data points, and one of them is the log analytics workspace. And to get the historical data, for example, for secure score over time, we need this data in a workspace. And one of the capabilities that you will see in a minute is the ability to stream data to a workspace. For example, I want to export all the regulatory compliance data because I want to see it over time and to see how I'm progressing across the standards. And to use the secure score over time reports, I do need the historical data. So one of the requirements is to configure a continuous export capability to stream the data to a centralized workspace. The continuous export is based on a subscription level, but since we have Azure policies, you can configure it at scale to point to a specific workspace. Let's see a demo. So in Security Center, as I mentioned, we have a new menu item called Workbooks. Once I click on a workbook, I get the workbook gallery. This is a bit different from the gallery that you see in Azure Active Directory, because on Azure Active Directory, you will see all the out of the book templates that Azure AD team decided to publish. And here on Security Center, you will see just the ones that are relevant for Security Center. As I mentioned, we have the public templates, the one in purple. Let me just zoom a bit. The one in purple are the ones that we decided to publish, and here are the 3 out of the box one, the secure score over time, which is based on the log analytics workspace, because we need the historical data to see the overtime report. Second, we have the system update, which is based on Azure Resource Graph. It's a live data and vulnerability assessment finding. I can also see all the reports that I created, the ones in blue, the ones that I've decided to create, and it's basically ARM resource, so it's stored in a subscription, and organizational template that the company decided to publish to all subscriptions. Let's first focus on the secure score over time. Secure score over time, as I mentioned, one of the prerequisites is to set up continuous export data. Continuous export data can be configured on the pricing and settings. You need to select a specific subscription. Of course, you don't need to do it on each and every subscription manually. We have Azure policies that can enable it at scale. On the continuous export, I have 2 options. I can stream the data to Event Hub or to a log analytics workspace. I can select log analytics workspace and then decide what I want to basically store in the workspace. So for the secure score over time, I do need the security recommendation and secure score, both streaming and snapshots. Once you configure it, and let's see a workspace that I already configured, now I have the data that I can be used for a report. And many customers already use continuous export and then use other platform to create the reports. So if I click on the security and audit, you will see few tables that continuous export just added information into them. For example, secure score, security alerts, regulatory compliance, security recommendations. So all I have to do is just run a query and then I get the historical data. So this is the pre-requirement for the secure score over time report. And of course, you have the instructions here. Once I configure continuous export to export or stream the data to a workspace, now I can basically select the relevant workspace and start seeing insights. This is the workbook. This is the platform. It contains many controls, many grids, many things that you can use by yourself, and you will see how easy it is to create this report. And also we will explore how we basically created it. So every customer can customize it to its needs and save a local version of it. So I see a data from the last 30 days, and for example, for a particular subscription, because I configure it just on one. And see here I can see a current score, a 7-day change and a 30-day change, and so also aggregated score for the selected subscription. So if I have multiple subscription, I see aggregated score over time, and also click on a specific subscription to see the score for that subscription particularly. Customers do want to see a secure score over time. So as you can see on the chart, I'm just hovering the graph, and you can see for each day the score that I had in that day. Scrolling down for the given time range, I can see the top recommendation with the recent increase in unhealthy resources. So I know the count of unhealthy resources per recommendation for the last 30 days. So I know on which recommendation I need to focus. And also see how I'm progressing on the security control score over time. So for example, I see that enable MFA is a 0, so it means that I need to remediate it. I need to remediate the specific, all the recommendations that are under this specific security control. Down, I can see resources changed over time. So for the given time for the 30 days, I can see all the recommendations and the changes. For example, all the resources that become or change status to unhealthy, to healthy, or not applicable. So customers really wanted to know all the changes in the environment. So clicking on a specific recommendation and scrolling down, I can see, for example, the two unhealthy. For example, these two resources, the original state was healthy, and then the time of change, here is the time of change, they changed the status to unhealthy. So I can see all the resources that changed their status. Since Azure Workbook recognize, for example, if I have a resource ID in the workspace, it also provides me a deep link for the resource. So I don't need to switch the context and open another tab. I just need to click on the resource, and it provides me a deep link just for the resource, so I can see details on the resource. And once I want to get back to the report, I just need to click on it, to click close, and then I'm back on the report. Once I'm doing on the slice and dice, many customers wants to export the data and provide it, for example, to another vendor to resolve the recommendations and improve the score. So as you can see, we also added the option to export to CSV. So you can slice and dice, select the recommendations that you want, or just investigate a specific drop in the score, and we will see in a minute how you can do that, and then export the data. So let's assume that I want to investigate that point in time. This chart is based on time busting, another capability in workbooks that you will see in a minute. So if I want to investigate a specific point in time, I can select basically that point in time, and you will see that all the other grids are basically filtered by the selection. So this is the reason for having interactive reports. You can select one parameter on one grid, and then all the other objects are filtered by your selection. So here for that point in time, I see all the recommendations that change the status. So if I see a drop, I can see why this happened. So I see that one of my machine actually changed the status from not applicable to unhealthy. And I also have an option to view the recommendation, a filtered view just on the resource. So I can click on it and start the remediation. And if it's not applicable, of course, I can see the reason. Since it's based on the Workbooks platform, it means that everyone can see the underlying queries that we use to create this report. So every customer can click on edit, and start customize this report. So if I'm looking just on the first grid, as you can see, I have the edit button. So every customer can click on edit and see the underline, not that one, the underlying query that we used. So for example, this particular query is based on a log analytics workspace. So you can see the query that we use to create the insights. So we know sometimes it's difficult to create the queries by yourself. So to make it easier for you, you can use the queries that we used for the reports to create your own custom ones. So, for example, I can decide to remove one of the controls that I have here on the workbook. So let's assume that I don't want this specific grid. I can decide to clone it or remove it and then save my own version of the report. Or maybe I do want to show other chart here in a different way. I can just can click on one of the charts and select, instead of time chart, maybe a line chart or different visualization. And during this session, I will see how you can create your reports and select the different visualization. So our main goal is to provide the report and also to provide you the queries if you want to create the ones that you want to create without the need to invest many time on those queries. So this is the first report that we created, and of course you can select here on the specific parameters. That's the first one that we delivered as part of the integration, and this is the first report that is available for everyone. The second one, which is based on Azure Resource Graph, is for system updates. So customers ask us to get a unified view for all updates and basically also export the data once they filtered based on the need. So here we have just the subscription filter because it's based on resource graph. You don't need to keep historical data here. And we also show the help. So if you want to see on which recommendation it is based, you can just click here on the link and see the relevant recommendation, which is under the hood. Here we have few charts, for example, count of resources by health. We have the count of unhealthy machines by OS and count of missing update by severity. Another insight that we have decided to add to this workbook is counting how many VMs with outstanding updates we have for each resource group in a subscription. So instead of just opening the recommendation, and basically you need to know on which one you need to focus, which one is the most important one. So based on those queries, you know on which resource group you need to focus because it has many VMs that requires attention compared to the other one that, for example, have just one. On the count of missing updates per unhealthy resources, you'd see a list of VMs with the most count of missing updates. So for VM1, I can see how many high missing updates I have with the severity of high, medium, and low. And here, since it's based on workbooks, we have a deep links, for example, for the resource group or for the VM, if you just want to get more information on the resource before starting the remediation. Here I have a list of missing updates, so I can click on one of the machines. I can expand it, search for all fields that are on the grid, so I can look for something and then export to a CSV. So if someone else needs to remediate, they can do it easily by using the workbook, and also see a different view. For example, if I know for a specific KB article, I can just look for it and then see the affected machines. Clicking on the KB article, I can get a list of virtual machines, and we also added the option for you to download the patch immediately by just clicking on the update catalog and also export to a CSV. And since this is based on the workbook platform, you can see all the underlying queries that we use to create this report, so you don't need to invest much on understanding that. And the last one is the unified dashboard for vulnerabilities. We know that it's sometimes hard to see all the data in one place, and that's the reason why we created this unified vulnerability assessment dashboard. Here you can see on the overview the unhealthy machine, unhealthy container registries, and unhealthy SQL resources. And of course, also the most impacted resources or with the most vulnerabilities that you currently have on the environment, so you can start remediate. And of course, select each and every pillar to get more information. So here I can see all the VM vulnerabilities per VM and per resource group. I can search, I can see categories, and also see the specific CVEs and data and export to a CSV. And the same for containers and SQL. That's the out-of-the-box reports that we delivered. Secondly, we would like customers to create their own reports, right? Because we cannot create a user interface for every customer that can meet everyone's needs. Sometimes you need to create your own report or your own visuals, but you don't want coding skills for that. You want to do it with drag and drop and utilize our data. So that's the reason why we wanted also to focus on scenario number 2. We want to provide you to create those workbooks by yourself. But first, before you build the workbook, there are some things that you need to think about when you want to define such a report. So you need to define the problem that you are going to solve, because if you are going to create reports that no one is going to use, it's actually useless. So first you need to see what is the problem that you are going to solve. For example, I want to get a list of all resources that became unhealthy within the last 7 days. Last week, we added to Azure Resource Graph 2 new parameters. First one is the first evaluation date, when a resource added as healthy or unhealthy, or basically get a recommendation, we added the date. And when a resource change its status, we also added another parameter called last change date. So with those two fields, you can see or create a report that give you all the unhealthy resources that just added in the last 7 days. Or for example, I want to create kind of a resource health dashboard from a given subscription, for a given resource group, and create my own score just for those resources. So first you need to define the problem or the report or how you would like to see it. Then you need to identify from where you are going to take the information. Is it going to be historical data? So it means that I need to based on log analytics workspace, and it also means that I need to use the continuous export, or I just want to see the real-time data. So I need just the Azure Resource Graph, or sometimes I need both. So on a workbook, I can combine data sources or merge them, so I can combine between data sources. Secondly, it's preferred to sketch it just with a paper or using a PowerPoint slide, just to sketch how do you want to see it. And lastly, you can start to build your own workbook based on what you have defined. Workbook has many elements. We have the visuals, we have the layouts and data sources. We also talked about the data sources because for Security Center, we have the 3 main ones. On the visuals, you can create text charts, grids, maps, parameters, also can create layouts. For example, on the vulnerability assessment finding, you saw different tabs. So you can define a specific section with specific grids and then create your own interactive experience between the tabs. You can put widgets, margin, messages, and many more. It's true that we have those queries and you can use those 3 main ones that we delivered, but we want to let you use it in a simple way. Recently in Security Center, we had an option to open in resource graph. So many customers ask us, okay, here are the security alerts, and of course the data is in Azure Resource Graph, but how can I query the information? Which query I need to use to get the data to create the custom reports. So of course you can go to the documentation and do it by yourself, but we also added the option to open the query. So you can see the underlying query that we use for the user interface to get the data. So before you create the workbook, you can run the query to see the underlying data. So this is the query that we use to create the security alerts. So you can take this query and use it to create your workbook. On inventory, for example, once you you slice or filter based on your needs. For example, I want to get all the resources that are network security rules. Once I'm using the filters and click on Open Query, I get the underlying query that used to show the results on the screen. So you don't need to invest much on the query. You just need to use that. And of course, we have it on the recommendation. So let's see how you can create reports from scratch by yourself. So we are going back to Azure Security Center, and let's click on Workbook. Here, we don't have just the out-of-the-box one, we can create a new one. And here is the canvas. You can basically start adding your queries. I already defined the queries that I want to have in my report. For example, I want to see recommendations. I want to see where Azure Defender is turned on which subscription, and just to add a few charts based on Azure Resource Graph queries. You don't need to create those by yourself. As I mentioned, we already provide it, but on our GitHub repository, and we will explore it later, we also provide starter kit for who that are not experienced with Azure Resource Graph, so you can use those queries to create reports. I already defined few queries for my report. So first of all, I want to see the different subscription that I have, and to see the Defender plan. So I have two subscriptions, and one which is Defender on, but not on all the plans, and the second one which all the plans are basically turned on. And this is the query. As you can see, all the Security Center information is under the Security Resources table, and then I created my query. All I have to do is just take this query and put it on the report. So clicking on the add option, you can have multiple objects that you can put on the screen. So first of all, I want to have a title for my report. So let's add a text. This particular object is based on Markdown language. So let's just create a new title. Okay, and let's select the text style and click on Done. This is the first object that I want to have in my workbook, and of course you can also insert HTML text in the Markdown. Secondly, I want to bring the information from a resource graph, for example, all my subscription, and then to see where Azure Defender is turned on. So the second option is to add a query. Here I have many data sources, as I mentioned, but for this particular workbook, I do want to use Azure Resource Graph. I need to select from which subscriptions I want to pull the information. So for that, I want to use all my subscriptions that I selected in the subscription filter and just paste the query. Here I get the results as the ones that I got on Azure Resource Graph Explorer, but I do want to visualize it in a different way. So as you can see here, I have many visualizations. I have grids, area charts, line charts, and so on. I want to use the tiles for a second, and tiles provide me a way to visualize it in a much better way. But to create tiles, I need to define how I want the data to look like. Click on tile settings. I can basically decide how my tiles will be created. So let's assume that I will have multiple boxes. So let's use the Defender plan. As you can see, on the left, I will show if it's on or off. On the title, I will show a subscription, and let's see how it looks like. Okay, not so attractive, but I get the subscription ID and the status. But I don't recognize what is this subscription ID, but Workbooks knows how to convert it to a meaningful name. So as you can see on the column renderer, I can select that this basically is a subscription. So I just need to define that this is a subscription, and then I get the subscription name. On the left, I want to show the status on a different style. So let's assume it will be, let's see, on the title, I do, just a second, a big number. Okay, so I will see a big number, or maybe let's do it more interactive, like a threshold. So let's see, I want to see if it contains on. I do want it to be as green. Let's see how it goes. Okay, if it's partial, let's choose another icon. So if it contains partial, I do want the icon to be warning. And I do want also to have a border. And that's it. Now I have the query in more interactive way. So I have two subscriptions. I see the Defender status on each subscription. That's one thing. Secondly, I can decide that this object will be, for example, tiny, so it won't take too much space in my workbook. So I have the title and I have two subscription, and I can see the Defender plan. And also if I have many subscriptions, I can see it at scale. Now I do want to see which plans are actually enabled on each subscription. So for that, I have another query. Let's run it. So here I get the Defender plans, for example, virtual machine, Azure Defender for virtual machine, for each subscription. And I do want to put this on the workbook, and when I select a subscription, I will see the relevant plans for this subscription. So let's add another query and use the same Azure Resource Graph and select all subscriptions. And let's run it. Okay, again, I see the same results, but I do want to have interactive reports. So once I click on a specific subscription, I will get all the relevant plans, so I can understand which plans are turned off or on. One of the options in Workbooks is the ability to create or export parameters. So if I click on something, I will be able to filter the other objects on the screens. So on the advanced settings, I can export one parameter. So one of the parameter is subscription ID. So let's export it. And this is a text. And on the query, I will just add a condition that once a subscription ID is selected, show me just the relevant results. So as you can see, I'm clicking run and there is no subscription selected, but let's see. Let's export the parameter. Subscription ID. Let's see that I pasted it right. And here the same. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay, it does not export. So let's use the ones that I already created just to not waste time. Okay, so as you can see beforehand, I created this particular one. So this query will change once I select on a specific object. So on MSDN2, I can see that two plans are actually free. That's the reason why they are partial. So I created the title, added these two tiles, and also a list of plans. Just not to waste more time, I used many queries that we have on GitHub, for example, to get all the recommendation and the tactic, for example, all the recommendation that are related to account breach, and also a list of recommendations and count of number of resources. So if I edit this particular query, I can see the resource graph query, and then for each column, I can select how I want to present it. So I can see a number of resources and decide to color it as red by the amount of number of resources. And here you can also see that workbooks know that this is a subscription, so it gives me the subscription icon and also the subscription name. So just by adding those queries and decide for the visualization, I can select this report and share it with others. And since I configured all the properties on the workbook to be impacted by the parameter that I selected, you can see that once I click on a subscription, everything is being filtered on this particular workbook. Once I complete it, I can save it. Since it is an ARM resource, I can share it with others just by having this link. And also, if it's used as a dashboard, you can also click on auto refresh and refresh the data automatically every 5 minutes, 1 day, and so on and so forth. Let's speak about our community workbook. So we saw the out-of-the-box workbooks that we deliver, and you can also create your own ones. But we also have our community workbooks where you can find community workbooks that were created by the community. You can see many other artifacts. And of course, once you create your own workbooks, we encourage you to share it with the community so everyone can be benefit of it. Just from the workbooks gallery, you can see a drop down here that point you to a link to Azure Security Center GitHub. Once you click on it, you can see the available workbooks that the community already created. And we encourage you to create your own custom workbook and publish with the others. So here we have the instructions how you create ones and publish with the community. But since we have already those workbooks, you can deploy it to your environment easily. So let's see how you can do that. On the Azure Workbook gallery, you click on Azure Security Center. Let's click on one of the workbooks that created by Holger, one of our employees. Here I see an example how it looks like. So basically, the workbooks is based on information from Azure Resource Graph. So I can see different views for the recommendation across subscription, and I can see specific resources and the recommendation. So let's assume that I do want to use it. Using the deploy to Azure, it gets the workbook template, redirects you to Azure portal, and then create a new resource so you can start use it in Security Center. For each community workbook, you need to specify where you want to store this workbook. So for example, I do want to store it in a specific subscription. Let's pick one of the resource group and let's give it a name. ASC recommendation workbook. Let's click on next and create. It will take a minute for the workbook to be created. And once the deployment is completed, you can go to Security Center, click refresh, and see the new workbook that was deployed from the community. Let's click and see how it looks like. So here we have another example to create custom reports based on the Azure Resource Graph. So the owner decided to have, for example, parameters to select subscriptions, recommendations, if you want to focus just on a few of them, to filter by the status, since the information is available to us, and also on the resource type, because sometimes I do want to see all the recommendation based on a resource type and not in general. Then you get a summary and, of course, all the conditional formatting options that we have on the grids, and then see compliance by resource type. So you see the resource type that has many recommendations available. Here, based on each resource type, I can select, for example, this particular subscription, and then you get a list of recommendations. You can see a resource. You can get a deep link just for the recommendation, so you can start remediate it. And of course, you can change this workbook to your need and save it and create, for example, it as a org level template so everyone can use it. Let's speak about common questions that we get from customers. Customers know that we have also Azure dashboards when you can add widgets from all around Azure, for example, for other resources. So how it's different from Azure dashboards? Workbooks are like reports. Workbooks are basically interactive reports. With dashboard, you can quickly access other widgets in Azure. So basically, if you created a report, let's assume that I have, let's take one of the reports that I created. One of the options is to pin a specific object that you have in Workbook just in a dashboard. So pinning it, I can decide to pin it to a dashboard, and then on Azure dashboards, you get a centralized view of all widgets that are available on dashboard, and also see objects that are part of your workbook. So if I have a dashboard which is a monitoring, not particularly for Security Center, but you do want to include Security Center widgets as well, you can do it by just pinning those objects into dashboard, and once you click on it, you are redirected to the relevant workbook that you created. When should I use the workbook? So the customer scenarios are for basically creating troubleshooting guides, monitoring advanced reports, for example, to give a subscription owner just all the recommendation and the security alerts that he needs to focus on. And basically for all other reports that you are creating today, basically workbooks can do more than that. It can trigger ARM templates. You can merge between the data and visualize it in multiple ways. Where should I start? So first of all, by clicking on Workbooks from Security Center, use the out-of-the-box templates that we have. If you don't have experience with KQL, the custom query language, I encourage you to learn it. It's very similar to SQL. So you can query the information and see how to create those reports. And for creating org level templates, we also have ARM templates that you can deploy it at scale. So once you come up with a workbook, you can use ARM templates to deploy this workbook across all subscription in the organization, so subscription owners can use it. Who can access workbooks? So to create workbooks, you need RBAC role, which is a monitoring contributor, and for data source is for monitoring reader. And of course, if you use workbooks from Security Center, you also need permission for Security Center, for example, security reader. Let's focus on the resources. We documented all our custom dashboards that are available in Security Center and the options that you have on the workbook themselves. To understand which visuals and options you have on the platform, Azure Monitor Workbooks publish their own documentation. Learning more about KQL queries and how you can leverage it to basically query all the Azure resources that are available on ARG, you can use the KQL queries. and also to use our GitHub repository. So just focus on our GitHub. We also provide starter queries. So if you want to learn more on the queries, how to query security center data, we provide predefined queries. So if we focus on starter kit, you can see the relevant queries to get all ASC recommendations, or for example, get the pricing tiers across subscription. And here you can see demos how it looks like once you implemented it on a workbook. So you can use many queries that we already publish on GitHub to start create your own workbooks. And of course, we encourage you to send us feedback. If you want to see more work out of the workbooks, we will appreciate your feedback. And if you also have suggestions to the current ones, I can tell you that now in progress, we have a workbook for regulatory compliance over time, very similar to the secure score over time that we have. Another initiative to have workbook just focusing on network security resources. So you get insights just on all your network resources in Azure in one view. So this is a work in progress. And of course, once you create your own reports, we encourage you to share it with the community so everyone can enjoy it. Thank you so much for joining for today. I hope you learn how workbooks can be leveraged from Security Center and how easy it is to create those reports from the product. And I really encourage you to test out the samples that we have already on GitHub and enjoy creating those reports. And we can also go over the questions if you have ones, if you have time for it. Fernanda, do we have any interesting questions?
So the latest one is, what is it? What is it?
I see many questions published.
Yeah. So the latest one is, are the queries for the demo that showed the subscription plan on partial and sub-enabled features available?
Yes, sure. So all the queries that I use to create the sample workbooks throughout the session are basically all of them are available here on our GitHub repository, and you have a link from the gallery. So basically, I use the ones that are available here. So I just copy it, paste on the workbooks, and then I create the visualization. So all queries, we have a bunch of queries available. You can just start using them to create your reports. So yeah.
Yeah, that was the last one. Yeah.
Cool. Great. So thank you so much, Valon.
Thank you, guys. Yes, thank you. Yeah, the audience definitely kept us, especially Dean, in our tippy toes. So thank you for all the questions and the comments, for such an awesome audience, and thank you, team, for tackling all these questions. And of course, thank you, Lior, for an excellent presentation. And just wanted to provide the audience with a quick reminders that the best way to ensure that you don't miss any future webinars like this or any major announcements is by visiting our landing page at aka.ms/security community. And when you go there, you can sign up to our email list. And while you're there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content that some of them discuss here in our call, relevant to all of our security products that we support. I suggest a good start would be browsing our bite-size videos and ninja trainings and recordings of past webinars. They're just such a vast material to learn and advance your skills. So we'd love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute by submitting your feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thanks again, and goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.